You're talking about
Yeah, but I know.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. You ready?
Now you're the really, really hardcore crowd. So, who has a question? I'll repeat the question so everyone can hear.
This is just something that occurred to me.
Yes.
You spoke of that there could be more than one alchemist in a family, and I come from a family of 8. And I think it's possible we have 3.
Yes, no, it's possible.
And
yes.
I was wondering, would those of us who are alchemists kind of gravitate toward one another, have a stronger bond? Yes?
In my family, it's my mother and myself. My mother, there can be more than 2 alchemists in the family, absolutely. I found it's usually one person. As the years went by, I started noticing 2, and there may be more in families. Only when I got to a point that I didn't want to change my mother anymore, and I got to the point of really enjoying her company, enjoying being with her, we kind of became buddies, and we could talk about stuff we'd never spoken about before. We just became friends. And in that moment, my mother phoned me, and when I got to that place where I would never want to change her, you know, I just love the way she is, then she called me and said, I want to do this process. So I got to facilitate her through the process. And, you know, then the shit hit the fan in my family completely. It was just like, all sorts of stuff started happening, you know.
How long did that last?
It lasted a while. You know, it takes as long as it takes. How long does it last? That's a mental body question, you see. The heart orchestrates this work. The heart chooses who comes into the heart. It's not, this is what the grace is. It's being orchestrated from here, right? But the heart is facilitating the re-entry into this awareness. And so a question of how long is this going to last, and it's as if we can manage this. And we can, you know, control. The whole thing is we've been trying to control this. This is what's going on, right? So there can be more than one alchemist in a family. And there's not alchemists in all families. And why that is, who knows? But more and more, I think there are many alchemists on this planet who don't even realize, they haven't yet had their capacities validated. They haven't had their capacities validated. And my insight is that the new paradigm that we'll move into is when all children that are born as alchemists, and they don't lose that capacity, right? And this work will give you new insight into stories that you've known all your life, but you weren't able to perceive what was really going on. For example, Jesus was an alchemist, right? He could transform experiences around himself without doing anything, because he was just being, right? And he was born an alchemist. And we know that because it's called a divine, a virgin birth. But what a virgin birth is when the emotional body isn't imprinted with any signatures. It's not that there's no sexual conception. It's that the mother and the father have been training and have integrated their emotional bodies before they give birth to the child. So when 2 people come together and they do intimacy work and release each other of all condition, that they release all that structure that they place on themselves and each other, then when they have a child, there is no condition to imprint on the emotional body, right? And that's why, for example, Jesus was born in a stable. He wasn't born in a stable because there was no room in the inn. Give me a break. He was born in a stable because when you are bringing a child into this world that you don't want to be imprinted, the last thing you want is that child in the inn. You want that child surrounded by beings who are not going to imprint it, who are the animals. So take it and have the child be born in a stable where it's surrounded by beings that won't imprint it. And it doesn't tell you less about who Jesus was. It tells you more about what was going on. And it tells you something about Mary and Joseph and the intense work that they had to do before they brought that child into this world. What awesome beings they must have been. The idea that we're told, the stories that's passed on to us rids us of the reality of what's going on and makes it inaccessible to us, right? It's like this work, when you go into your emotional body and let your heart be your teacher, your heart will show you things that's where the revelation comes from. It will reveal things to you through the lens of your own experience, right? So, for example, if we look at the last moments of Jesus' life from this perspective, from the perspective of the alchemist, we see Jesus as practicing alchemy intensely. So let's start with the kiss on the cheek, the betrayal, the setup, right? If you think for a moment that he was taken by surprise and, I didn't see that coming, right? And it shouldn't be happening, right? And the person who's doing it to me is a betrayer, right? No. The person who's doing it, Judas was probably the only person Jesus could trust to carry out what they wanted to demonstrate. When you demonstrate, you put the demon straight. You have to demonstrate it. That's why you have to give yourself the experience to demonstrate to yourself that this demon is not in control. It becomes a demon when you let it take over, right? And so that kiss on the cheek, why do you get upset when someone triggers you? If you really look at it, the reason you get upset is because in that moment you feel betrayed. And whether it brings up fear, anger, or grief, the reality is it's a moment of betrayal. And that person is literally kissing you on the cheek in that moment. So that's the first thing. And then when you get betrayed, what happens, right? What happened to Jesus? He got taken before Pontius Pilate. And Pontius Pilate asks a really significant question. Are you who they say you are? Are you who they say you are? Because if you are, I'll let you go. If you are this inauthentic person that you have created so that you feel better and safe in the world, then I will let you go. You can go on your way. But if you're not, then you need to die to that. If you're not who they say you are, I'm going to crucify you. And that crucifixion begins the moment you know you are being crucified. The first emotional state that comes up is related to your physical mortality, which is fear. You can be sure that in the moment Jesus was told he was going to be crucified, that he went into fear. But did he say, hang on a minute, actually, I am the king of the Jews. And it was Judas's fault, and you could, right? No, contained it. Didn't even show, it contained it, because it required the nourishment of the fear. It's nourishment to enliven being, right? And then the walk up to the crucifixion, right? On the walk up to the crucifixion, people are beating him, swearing at him, throwing feces and urine on him. You take yourself on a walk like that and see how you feel. You will be angry. You'll be enraged if people treat you like that. That's the anger walk through the mental body. Anger is always about the mental body. It's always about a plot. Revenge is a mental plot, right? Anger. And then get to the cross. Who's at the cross? Who's there? His mother and his companion, Mary Magdalene, and other people who don't understand what's going on. They don't get the setup. They can't contain this experience. So there's an immense amount of grief going on there. Any demonstration of grief? No. Contain it. I need all this nourishment for what I'm about to demonstrate. And then the crucifixion. And the crucifixion itself, the cross, being nailed to a cross, is the physical manifestation or physical representation of what alchemy is. When you realize there is nothing nothing you can do with your hands to save you from having to face this and feel this, then you might as well hammer your hands down, because they're no use to you in this alchemy work. And when you realize that it doesn't matter where you go, it doesn't matter what sacred site, what temple, wherever you go on this planet, that wherever you go, there you are. The universe will find you where you are and bring it to you on a silver platter. Then you might as well nail your feet down. You are officially crucified. And in that moment, you can suffer, you can struggle with your predicament. And if you struggle, it'll just cause more pain. And if you think about it, if you go into the bleeding thoughts, that's the thorns around the head, around the mental body, right? That's what that is about. And we know what happens when we stay in that alchemical moment. We're going to go to the death experience. And the death experience, you will know if you gauge your mental body, the death experience will be, I can't do this anymore. There is no God. This doesn't work. It's hopeless. That's entering the death experience. And we know Jesus went through that. He said, Father, why have you forsaken me? He entered his own death experience. But he stuck with it. It took him 3 hours. 3 hours to transition through that, for that signature to die and to completely awaken to this vibrational awareness. To demonstrate to us the awakening, the resurrection. And the resurrection is really about coming into this moment. Because this emotional signature distracts our attention into the past, makes what happened and how can I stop this happening again. That's what creates a time-based paradigm. And when we operate in a time-based paradigm, when we go around doing stuff and we're not in the moment, this moment, we're dead to the moment. So as we go through alchemy, we're raising ourselves from the dead, we're entering the life which is in the present moment. Life is in the present moment. And so that's a demonstration of that experience. And through it all, it wasn't about anything he did. It's like, so we have all these like stations of the cross and all the stuff that he did. Look at what he did here. What was he being? What's the state of being? That's the truth. That's the power. Not anything of the doing. That's all stories made up by the mental body to force the emotional body into a particular behavior again. So this work, the nature of this work of alchemy, is if you follow it step by step, like in your own experience, trust your own experience. Your experience is valid. Every upset you receive is valid. It's your moment of betrayal. From then on, as you will be asked, are you who they say you are? Then the fear, then the anger, then the grief, then the resurrection. And you might get crucified a couple of times in a day. It's rough these days. And what's profound, you see, to me, that awareness doesn't take away from a person like Jesus. Because when I look at that person now, I go, wow. That person knew what we were going to go through now. And planted in the physical world a demonstration of what we require to know now. Only now. We can't comprehend it before now. So he must have come from the future and gone to the past to plant something for the present. Now that's a dude. That is a dude. That dude rocks. Right? So the work will reveal to you things through the prism of your own experience. When you look at all sorts of religious teachings, through the prism of the experience of the alchemy, you are going to have insight and revelation, aha moments, that you know things without anyone explaining anything to you about these things. So I can't remember what the question was, but... Okay, anyone else got a question?
7 years old. Why not beyond 7 or before 7?
Well, the 7-year cycle, I don't know why it's 7. But if we look at the 7-year cycle, the first 7 years of our life we're children, and it's roughly around the age of 7 that we go to school. It's roughly around the age of 14 that we enter puberty, and it's roughly around the age of 21 that we celebrate our arrival in the world as adults. And the experience of the child is really about felt perception, emotional. Children are allowed to be emotional. The schooling, we enter intense mental development, and from puberty onwards we start preparing for our physical role in the world. So those three, I don't know why 7. In the Vedas they say don't ask why, so don't ask me. I don't have the Vedas clue about it. But I see, for me, I perceive this through working with myself and with other people over and over and over, and watching the experience. In other philosophies and things, they also speak about the 7-year cycle, but they have different ways. Someone told me the other day about the 7-year cycle, in which this was the moon, and this was a something, and the moon is the emotional. So there is a thread in it. And even in our indigenous societies, when we were more indigenous by nature, and we kind of lived in cooperation with the earth instead of manipulating the earth, because that's, again, we've manipulated the earth. There used to be ceremonies, there would be like a naming ceremony. They would have a naming ceremony at 7, another naming ceremony at about 14, another naming ceremony at about the age of 21. And at the age of 21, a person would be taken and put through specific rites of passage. And up until 7, you could run around and be free, but from 7 onwards, you had to sit and listen to the elders when they told stories around the fire. So these cycles have been going all the way. We acknowledge them whether we're aware of them or not. But they're actually energetic cycles. That's why they're hard to see until they're shown to us. Because it's really a cycle that's set in motion by this development of the emotional body. And you will have insight in your own experience when you do this work, in which you'll see, every 7 years this would happen. I've just been looking at the physical event, that's why I couldn't recognize it. But it wasn't about the physical event that reoccurred, it was the feeling that kept coming up as a result of what was going on. It was the feeling. So, it may be this event, but it's the same feeling, and then another event, but the same feeling. It's the emotional that goes on. And what traditionally would happen is around the middle of our life experience, this emotional signature would become so dominant, it would break through all our ability to sedate and control it, and we'd start behaving like a child. So we'd buy a red sports car, get a blonde, and drive off into the sunset, right? And we call it a midlife crisis. But what a midlife crisis is when the emotional signature breaks free. That's why when someone is going through a midlife crisis, acts childishly. Their behavior is not at all. There's no maturity in it all. Because what they're doing is they're acting out the emotional signature. And what they're doing is they're projecting it into the world, not integrating it. So at the moment, we're on a planet that's having a midlife crisis. If you look at what's going on the planet, you can either look at it physically. For example, you can look at the war in Iraq as a physical event, and you can see it happening now, and you think it's got something to do with oil, it's got something to do with, whatever this, it's got something. But actually, it's a war. It's a war between the Persians and the Christians. It's a memory. It's a memory that's coming up. And what we're doing with the memory, if I take the memory out and project it on my boss and then go and start attacking my boss when the memory comes up, it's going to be a war. So what's happening in the world is these memories, especially in the Middle East, we've got old memories there. We've been beating each other up there for a long time. Those are ancient memories between Muslim, Jews, and Christians. It's been going on for a long time. So those memories, so no one resolves the memory. They just keep making physical arrangements and mental agreements. It never solves anything because it requires integrating the emotional signature that's coming up from that memory. All over the planet, just look, there's memories coming up everywhere. That's called the harvest. The harvest is when our memories come up and we have the capacity to go and integrate them and harvest back our presence. Every time you go and integrate an aspect of your emotional body, you harvest presence. You become more and more and more present until you gain so much presence awareness, you can really feel in this moment, you can begin to feel this, and you suddenly gain an awareness of your authentic nature, what you really are, not who you are. Who is the good and bad story? The what? That's the third story. What am I? And that's the harvest. When we harvest those aspects of our unintegrated. Yes.
Being from South Africa, what do you think of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and as a way?
I think it was very useful there. I don't know much about it because I was here while that was all going on. I was living here. I left South Africa about a year, almost a year to the day before the first elections, when the ANC took over. So, but I know of the power of that. The power of the Truth and Reconciliation was really a demonstration of acknowledging this. And there's an amazing story. I mean, I know one of the stories that came out of that. There was an American girl, I think her name was Amy. She went to South Africa to go and help the black community in the township, right? And she went there to go and be in service there. And 4 black guys raped and murdered her, right? And so when the Truth and Reconciliation Commission came up, her parents, because what happened in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission is you were allowed to stand up and say, listen, I planted the bomb in that restaurant that killed those 13 people, and they would say, thank you, you're absolved. Off you go. We just wanted to know who did it, and the families would go, thanks for telling us. Okay, that's it, right? So everyone involved in the political violence, if they came up and said what they'd done and brought peace to both the victims and everyone involved, then they were allowed to go on their way, right? There was no prison, there was nothing. So the parents, her name was Amy Beale, the parents of Amy Beale requested that these 4 guys also have a chance to confess. And the government said, no, this wasn't a political crime. And they said it was a political crime. It was because of the politics of the country that those 4 black men behaved in that manner. It's the political situation, right, that gave rise to that sort of climate. So they came forward and they spoke about what they'd done, how they'd killed her and raped her, and the parents stood for them to be released. They are now the head of the Amy Beale Association in South Africa, who takes care of people in the townships, right? That's what comes out of acknowledging this. That's what will happen in your own life. You have to be the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in your own being, right? So that those aspects of yourself that have been the manipulators and everything actually serve. Free them of those roles, right? This mental body wants to be freed of its role because it's not God, it's not coping very well. But it doesn't know any different because it cannot comprehend being. It has no point of reference for being. And until it is shown the power of being, it will not surrender. It doesn't know any other way but to do things, to keep doing more stuff to try and feel better. That's why it's up to us within ourselves to reveal to ourselves through experience the capacity of the heart. Once we see it experientially, we automatically surrender. End of being sure that we know what to do. Surrender. And then the mental body is very useful. It's great we've been using it all night, right? To share insight and information. It's very good with information, right? Information is so we can move information with each other. So you can do a wonderful dance with the mental body, but don't use it to try and fix anything. You won't leave here knowing any more than you arrived. You just have more information. If you act on it, now you're going to know something. But if you walk out that door and you never act on this, you're no better off than when you arrived. Information is not going to do it. A book is not going to do it. It's actually the moment of sitting with my fear, anger, and grief without condition that accomplishes anything real and lasting.
Yeah, I wanted to ask if you've been thinking about the tipping point, which seems to be even why this building is here and why these people in Baton Rouge really want to gather. The consciousness raising is a tipping point, and I'm wondering if you think we're coming to a place in time where we're moving from the emotional into the vibrational just out of necessity.
No, I don't think it's out of necessity. I think it's part of the garden. The garden grows and it bears fruit, and the fruit is harvested. And to me, the fruit is beingness, being aware of beingness, and the consequences of that. But I don't know what's going to happen. I can only see what's happening around my experience, and for me, I see it's getting better all the time, right? In my experience, I can watch what's that program? CNN, see the end, CNN. Yeah? I can sit and watch the end, right? The end of food, the end of oil, the end of peace, the end of everything, right? Which is also funny because it's funny, but it depends. The thing is to look at our own experience. You can have an experience of TV. TV is great for entertainment. I love to be entertained by it, but I don't believe it. I believe my experience, and I can only look at my own experience and see the shadow of death that I walked through, right?
So
And
we're at the tipping point.
yeah, and
When
see,
you got to that
right,
crescendo.
and seeing that what is possible in my experience. I was an introvert at school. I never put my hand up once in a class.
No.
I couldn't speak in front of people like, right? Look at me now, you can't stop me talking, right? That's the power of this. Right, of going into those signatures and realizing the power of that, and that I don't have to do anything. I don't even have to know anything. I don't have a piece of paper with notes on it. I don't have to know anything. It knows everything. I just have to get out the way. Right? And so the radiance of being is so phenomenally powerful that's why I say not everyone has to get involved in this work. The radiance, we don't know I don't have to know what the consequences are. But I know that being is the answer. It doesn't mean stop all activity. Activity is beautiful. Embrace activity as a way of expressing being alive. But activity as a means to feel better doesn't serve us. It's manipulating. That's all it is. But activity as an expression of being, the radiance is like switching on. Every human being that enters this work and starts being at their causal point of their discomfort without any condition placed on it is like switching on a nuclear reactor as far as the radiance of being that happens in the environment. 360 degrees. Wherever they go, wherever they are, they're not even aware what is happening, how people around them are waking up because they have some peace. Because you're not going to wake up out of your experience when you're running in a nightmare. You're just trying to get away. But when there's peace, and you can just be for a while, like you can just be, then you start to wake up through the being. And so whenever we do this alchemy work, we become like a big shady tree. And the people around us, they like it when we come around. They also like it when we leave. Because when we come around, there's peace. But then they also get to see, in that peace, they get to see what's really going on with themselves. And they might not want to look at it, so like, won't you leave already, right? But we do unto ourselves as we would have others do. To me, that's the crux of it all. Right?
What was the turning point in your journey, your evolution that brought you to what you are now and your pain?
Well, it's an ongoing journey, so I haven't arrived anywhere. But my turning point, it's really, this is the phenomenal thing, is about journey without end, forever and ever, amen. The mental body goes, what do you mean, forever and ever, amen? Can't dig the forever and ever, right? My turning point was when I realized my experience was the truth. My experience was the light, my experience was the way. Unless I enter my experience and see it as valid and listen to it and let it be my teacher, that I was going to accomplish nothing. And when I did that, I stopped reading books. I stopped asking people. I have no one to ask what to do. Thank God I don't anymore. I don't have anyone to ask what to do. It's been like that for years. I don't have anyone to go to because I'd rather just go there. And that's why I said the thing of looking for my father psychologically in the world, I discovered my real father, right? In a way that I relate to that. And the way I relate to it is that this is always speaking, right? And it's speaking, its reverberations are determined by the condition of the emotional body. And then because of that condition, these radiations become the mental and the physical. And I realized that, so I said, all I have to do, if I want to hear this voice, I just have to listen to this one. Because taking care of myself, what does that mean? It's actually taking care of my feeling body. Taking care of what's going on with me feeling. Listening to myself, listening to my feelings. Being with myself, being with my feelings. I got that. And the more attention I paid there and integrated, the more open that become, the more clearer that voice becomes. Till I completely trust it to the point that I don't have to know what's going to happen. I just arrive here and it will take care of business. It knows what you require. I don't know what you require. I can't possibly know. So what's the point of having a pen and paper and notes? It would mean I would think that I know what you require. What you require comes up in the moment by what I end up babbling about. Because I'll leave here and I won't know about half the things I spoke about, right? So I give the recording to my companion and she listens to it and she goes, you know when you spoke about that thing? And that was, I go, I can't remember that. And then I'll listen to it and I go, okay, it'll come back, right? But we can, my turning point in realizing that was when I could live my life like this, when I could go into any situation completely comfortably, knowing that everything is provided in the moment, if I just pay attention to this, right? It doesn't mean I feel good all the time. I have days where I feel grotty, but I just feel grotty. I allow myself to feel that way. I trust that. I trust that, right? If I'm feeling confused, I trust that. I just be with the confusion. I don't try and change it. I be with it. And because I be with it, the thing about being is when we bring our being to bear upon anything, it transforms it. Not our doing, our being. And once we see that over and over, it becomes undeniable. What I am is being, not a being. The person that is a being is that I'll leave that behind, that identity. But the being, that's what's most valuable. When I can just, But one has to get that through experience. Can't get it mentally. Could never get it mentally. For years, couldn't get it mentally. Because the funny thing that happens to me now, I wrote the presence process probably 5 years ago, right? I go back and I open it and I look and I go, how did I know about that then? I've only figured that out now. I only get that now, right? But that's the nature of it. It goes eternally deeper. What you get here tonight, you will get at a different level if you go into the experience with your emotional body and be with your emotional signature and allow that to teach you. The next time you hear any of this, it will hit you at a deeper place of revelation. It just gets going deeper and deeper and deeper. As much as we can contain. Remember, this is what we'll finish off with tonight. As much as we can contain is as much as we can receive, is as much as is revealed. And containment, if I cannot contain my temper, my anger, how on earth am I going to contain the vibrational awareness? Right? So as I sit with my anger and I allow it to be there and I contain it, I don't sedate and suppress it out of my awareness. I contain it. I don't go into stories and project it into the world. I still do, but I catch myself and I go into containment, right? As I gain the capacity to containment, because containment is an art. Thou art in heaven. It is an art form. As I contain, every day I'm experiencing containment. The more of that I can contain, the more revelation I can contain, the more what is... You see, that's another thing that Jesus said. He said, heaven is now at hand. In other words, everything you require has been given. Why can't we realize it? Because we can't contain it. It's been given. There is peace. There is peace in Iraq. Take all the human beings away and you'll see what a peaceful place it is. There is only peace on this planet. You don't have to make it happen. We have to realize what's obscuring it and then develop a capacity by awakening the feeling body to contain an awareness of it. It's already given. And there are many other revelations that come to us because we can contain them. It comes through that practice of containment, right?
I'm sorry. I've got to ask you. When you talk about containing anger, are your fists clenching? Is your jaw tight? I mean, are you?
You're going to go through that.
Are you just sitting there in total peace?
No. It's not about being... I'm angry. If I'm containing angry, I'm angry. My body is flushed. My heart might be... I feel angry. But I'm not going to tell a story about it. My mental body will try. I know why I'm angry. You know? My mental body will try. See, initially, as we approach containment, remember, there is emotional release work and there's emotional resolution work. And the two are not the same. And what we normally do is we begin with the release work, which looks like me beating a pillow and calling the pillow my mother. Right? That's release work. After that, we feel better and things are a bit clearer because we've released the energy. But if you keep taking the pot off the pressure cooker, you will never cook the meal. If you keep taking the lid off the pressure cooker. The point of alchemy is when I no longer release that energy outward, which I'll gain a capacity to contain it, until I contain it and digest it. Right. And it's transformed through the state of being. You don't have to take care of that. It transforms, it's transformed through the beingness, right? And that the part of the containment is that containment requires that we die to that illusion we've been holding. And it's the death experience that's so hard. We only want to die at the end. We don't want to do any dying now. Die later, right? But the fact is, we already died. No one told us. It already happened, right? So just learn to rest in peace. Okay, one more.
When you started this process, and it was due to the neurological pain, you were looking to get better, just as I'm sure everybody.
Yes, we all come in.
The same
Right.
surge. Have you ever noticed a correlation with the fear, the anger, and the grief as to what illness? I mean, with your...
No, I don't think, I haven't noticed any particular correlation. Fear, what I have noticed about correlation between fear, anger, and grief is fear is mainly about our physical mortality. Mainly what we fear is being physically hurt, dying, physically, the anger is very much, impacts the mental body, right? When you're angry, you just cannot think, it just fractures your thinking, right? And the grief is directly with the emotional body. So those are the resonances. That's why, that's the dysfunctional of the physical, mental, and emotional aspect of our feeling body, right? So that's really the only correlation I've noticed. But there are many other levels, but it will be revealed to you as you go into your experience, right? That's the thing is, your experience, that was the tipping point for me. When my experience became my teacher. then I was free. Because I have a lot of teaching right there. Thank you very much for coming tonight.